Hello, everybody!
Just like two random girls, and I'm gonna be talking to you guys.
Shoes.
Woo!
Yay! This is going really well so far. See you on the flip side. We don't care. We're gonna keep doing what we're doing.
Oops, my bad.
That's a big deal now. Because I curse like a sailor.
Like a trucker.
We got some stories.
We got a lot. The theater.
She my man friend. What?
Temporary technical difficulties.
A little piece of my soul dies every time I think about
Inappropriate content coming your way.
Quarantine edition.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to A View from the Mez, a chat with Broadway babes. I'm Gina,
And I'm Tracy.
and today we are going to be talking about Rent, and how appropriate because it is Pride Month. We could not have planned this better. Literally, that was such a coincidence, and we are so excited to talk about Rent with you guys today. We don't have a special guest today, but we will be having some more special guests lined up in the next couple of episodes.
So Rent is a rock musical with music lyrics and book by Jonathan Larson. The musical is loosely based on Giacomo Puccini's 1896 opera La Bohème. And basically the music it tells the story of impoverished young artists who are struggling to survive and create a life in Lower Manhattan's East Village, which is also called Alphabet City. And it's in a time where it's under the shadows of the HIV/AIDS pandemic.
The musical was first seen in a workshop production at New York Theater Workshop in 1993. This same off-Broadway theater was also the musical's initial home following its official 1996 opening. The show's creator, Jonathan Larson, died suddenly of an aortic dissection, believed to have been caused by undiagnosed Marfan syndrome, the night before the off-Broadway premiere. The musical then moved to Broadway's larger Nederlander Theater on April 29, 1996. On Broadway, Rent gained official acclaim and won several awards, including the Pulitzer Prize for Drama and the Tony Award for Best Musical. The Broadway production closed on September 7, 2008, after 12 years of making it one of the longest-running Broadway shows. The production grossed over $280 million, and the success of the show led to several national tours and numerous foreign productions and live TV things. In 2005, it was adapted into a motion picture featuring most of the original cast members. Tracy's cracking up at me.
And a lot of live TV things.
Was I that obvious?
Things. Well, moving on. In 1988, playwright Billy Aronson wanted to create a musical based on Puccini's La Bohème, in which the luscious splendor of Puccini's world would be replaced with the coarseness and noise of modern New York. So in 1989, Jonathan Larson, who at the time was a 29-year-old composer, began collaborating with Aronson on this project. And the two together, they composed Santa Fe, Splatter. Later, that was reworked into the song that we all know as Rent. And I Should Tell You. Larson suggested setting the play amid poverty, homelessness, funky gay life, drag queens, and punk in the East Village neighborhood of Manhattan, which happened to be right down the street from his Greenwich Village apartment. He also came up with the show's ultimate title, a decision which Aronson wasn't happy with. At least Larson pointed out that Rent also meant torn apart. In 1989, he asked Aronson if he could use Aronson's original concept and make Rent his own show. So Larson was really ambitious and he had a lot of expectations for Rent, but his ultimate dream was to write a rock opera to bring musical theater to the MTV generation. Aronson and Larson made an agreement that if the show went to Broadway, Aronson would share in the proceeds and be given credit for the quote-unquote original concept and additional lyrics.
Jonathan Larson focused on composing Rent in the early 1990s, waiting tables at the Moondance Diner to support himself, as many people in the theatrical world do. And over the course of the years, Larson wrote hundreds of songs and made many drastic changes to the show, which in its final incarnation contained 42 songs. In the fall of 1992, Larson approached James Nicola, artistic director of the New York Theater Workshop, with a tape and copy of Rent's script. When Rent had its first staged reading at the New York Theater Workshop in March 1993, it became evident that despite its very promising material and moving musical numbers, many structural problems needed to be addressed, including its cumbersome length and overly complex plot.
As of 1994, the New York Theater Workshop version of Rent featured songs that never made it into the final version, such as You're a Fool, Do a Little Business, which was the predecessor of You'll See, which featured Benny, Mark, Roger, Collins, and Angel, Female to Female A and B, featuring Maureen and Joanne, He's a Fool, He Says, Right Brain, which was later written as one song, Glory, featuring Roger, You'll Get Over It, which was the predecessor of Tango Maureen. You'll Get Over It would have featured Mark and Maureen, where Tango Maureen featured Mark and Joanne. Real Estate, which was a number where Benny tries to convince Mark to become a real estate agent and drop his filmmaking career. And Open Road, which was the predecessor for What You Own, with a backing track that was similar to Your Eyes.
This workshop version of Rent starred Anthony Rapp as Mark and Daphne Rubin Vega as Mimi. Larson continued to work on Rent, gradually reworking its flaws and staging more workshop productions. On January 24th, 1996, after the musical's final dress rehearsal before its off-Broadway opening, Larson had his first and only newspaper interview with music critic Anthony Tomasini of the New York Times. Attracted by the coincidence that the show was debuting exactly 100 years after Puccini's opera. And as we said earlier, unfortunately, Jonathan Larson would not live to see Rent's success, as he died in the early morning of January 25th, 1996. Friends and family gathered at the New York Theater Workshop, and the first preview of Rent became a sing-through of the musical in Larson's memory. I can't even imagine what that must have been like. The show premiered as planned and quickly gained popularity, fueled by enthusiastic reviews and the recent death of its composer. It proved extremely successful during its off-Broadway run, selling out all its shows at the 150-seat New York Theater Workshop. Due to such overwhelming popularity and a need for a larger theater, Rent then moved to Broadway's then under renovation Niederlander Theater on 41st Street. On 41st Street, I can speak, on April 29th, 1996. At the production's request, final touches. At the production's request. Okay, that makes sense. At the production's request, final touches on the theater's remodeling and renovation were put on hold before and during the run of Rent because the show's producers and creative team felt that the unfinished look fit in well with the gritty setting of the show.
It's true. The story of Rent. Yes. On Christmas Eve in Manhattan's East Village, two roommates, Mark, who's a filmmaker, and Roger, who's a rock musician, are struggling to stay warm and produce their art. Mark's mother leaves them a voicemail wishing him a Merry Christmas and trying to comfort him since his ex-girlfriend Maureen dumped him. Their friend Tom Collins, who's a gay anarchist and a professor of computer-age philosophy at New York University, calls and plans to surprise them at their apartment, but he's mugged before he can get upstairs. At the same time, Mark and Roger's former roommate and their friend Benny, who has since become their harsh new landlord, has reneged on an earlier agreement and now demands last year's rent before shutting down their electrical power. However, Mark and Roger rebel and resolve not to pay the rent that they cannot pay and which they were promised would not be a problem.
Meanwhile, Angel, a cross-dressing street drummer, presently out of drag, finds Collins wounded in an alley and tends to him. The two are immediately attracted to each other, each learning that the other is HIV positive. It is revealed that Roger also has HIV, which he contracted from his last girlfriend who committed suicide after learning of her diagnosis, causing Roger to fall into depression. Mark leaves the loft while Roger stays home, trying to compose on his guitar without success. He wishes desperately to write one last song to be remembered by before he dies. An exotic dancer, junkie, and neighbor, Mimi, shows up at their apartment asking for help with lighting her candle, flirting with Roger in the process. However, he is clearly hesitant to return her affections. Meanwhile, Joanne, a lawyer and Maureen's girlfriend, receives a voicemail from her parents.
At last, the missing Collins enters the apartment, presenting Angel, who is now in full drag, and shares the money that she made and the amusing story of how she killed a dog to earn it. Mark comes home and Benny arrives, speaking of Maureen's upcoming protest against his plans to evict the homeless from a lot where he is hoping to build a cyber art studio. Benny offers that if they convince Maureen to cancel her protest, then Mark and Roger can officially remain rent-free. However, the two rebuff Benny's offer and he leaves. Mark leaves the loft yet again to go and help Maureen with the sound equipment at her protest, unexpectedly meeting her new girlfriend Joanne at the stage. Initially hesitant with each other, the two eventually bond over their shared distrust of Maureen's gaslighting and promiscuous behaviors. Mark then joins Collins and Angel to film their HIV support group meeting, while Mimi attempts to seduce Roger alone in his apartment. Roger is extremely upset by Mimi's intrusion, demanding that she leave him alone and resisting any kind of romantic feelings that he may harbor for her. After Mimi leaves, Roger reflects of his fear of dying and undignified death from AIDS, while the life support group echoes his thoughts.
Collins, Mark, and Angel protect a homeless woman from police harassment, but she chastises them. To lighten the mood, Collins talks about his dream of escaping New York City to open a restaurant in Santa Fe. Soon, Mark leaves to check up on Roger. While alone, Collins and Angel confess their love for each other. Joanne frantically prepares for Maureen's show, trying to balance all of the people calling her at once. Before the performance, Roger apologizes to Mimi, inviting her to come to the protest and dinner party his friends are having afterwards. At the same time, police, vendors, and homeless people prepare for the protest. Maureen begins her avant-garde, if not over-the-top performance based on Hey Diddle Diddle. At the post-show party at the Life Cafe, Benny arrives, criticizing the protest and the group's bohemian lifestyle. In response, Mark and all the cafe's bohemian patrons defiantly rise up to celebrate their way of living. Mimi and Roger each discover that the other is HIV positive and hesitantly decide to move forward with their relationship. Joanne explains that Mark and Roger's building has been padlocked and a riot has broken out. Roger and Mimi, unaware, share their first kiss, and the celebration continues.
And we left out that the best song in the show, La Vie Boheme, is the song that they sang during
La
this
vie
celebration.
boheme! Yes.
In Act 2, the cast lines up to sing together before the plot of the second act begins, affirming that one should measure life in love, seasons of love. Afterwards, Mark and Roger gather to break back into their locked apartment with their friends. A new voicemail reveals that Mark's footage of the riot has earned him a job offering at a tabloid news company called Buzzline. The others finally break through the door just as Benny arrives, saying that he wants to call a truce and revealing that Mimi, who used to be his girlfriend, convinced him to change his mind. Mimi denies rekindling her relationship with Benny, but Roger is upset and seemingly so, And although they apologize to each other, Mimi goes to her drug dealer for a fix.
Around Valentine's Day, Mark tells the audience that Roger and Mimi have been living together, but they are tentative with each other. It is also told that Maureen and Joanne are preparing another protest. During rehearsal, Maureen criticizes Joanne's controlling behavior, and Joanne criticizes Maureen's promiscuous mannerisms during the song Take Me or Leave Me. They break up dramatically following an ultimatum. Time progresses to spring, but Roger and Mimi's relationship is strained by Mimi's escalating heroin usage and Roger's lasting jealousy and suspicion of Benny. Each alone, Roger and Mimi sing a song of love and loneliness, telling each other how they feel as they watch Collins nurse Angel, whose health is declining due to AIDS. By the end of the summer, Mark continues to receive calls offering a corporate job at Buzzline. A dance is performed representing all the couple's sex lives. At the climax of the number, the two former couples break up and Angel suddenly dies.
At the funeral, the friends briefly come together to share their memories, with Collins being the last to reminisce. Mark expresses his fear of being the only one left surviving when the rest of his friends die from AIDS. And he finally accepts that corporate job offer from Buzzline. Roger reveals that he's leaving for Santa Fe, which sparks an argument about commitment between him and Mimi and between Maureen and Joanne. Collins arrives and admonishes the entire group for fighting on the day of Angel's funeral, causing Maureen and Joanne to reconcile. But not Mimi and Roger. The group shares a sad moment knowing that between the deaths and leaving, their close-knit friendships will be breaking up. Everyone leaves except for Mark and Roger, and so Mark tries to convince Roger to stay in New York. But Roger is unable to handle Mimi's declining health and becomes angry with Mark and leaves. Mimi returns to say goodbye and overhears everything that Roger is saying, and terrified agrees to go to rehab, which Benny is paying for. Collins is forcibly removed from the church for being unable to pay for Angel's funeral. Benny shows compassion by paying and offering Mark and Collins some drinks. Collins accepts, causing him and Benny to rekindle their old friendship. But Mark has to turn down the offer due to work commitments.
Sometime later, both Mark and Roger simultaneously reach an artistic epiphany, as Roger finds his song in Mimi, and Mark finds his film in Angel's memory. Roger decides to return to New York in time for Christmas, while Mark quits his job to devote his efforts to working on his own film. The characters' parents, concerned and confused about their respective situations, leave several worried messages on each of their phones. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year having passed, Mark prepares to screen his now completed film to his friends. Roger has written his song, but no one can find Mimi for him to play it to. Benny's wife, discovering Benny's relationship with Mimi, has pulled Benny out of the East Village. The power suddenly blows, and Collins enters with a handful of cash, revealing that he reprogrammed an ATM at a grocery store to provide money to anybody with the code ANGEL. Maureen and Joanne abruptly enter, carrying Mimi, who had been homeless and is now weak and close to death. She begins to fade, telling Roger that she loves him. Roger tells her to hold on as he plays her the song he wrote for her, revealing the depth of his feelings for her. Mimi appears to die, but abruptly awakens, claiming to have been heading into a white light before a vision of Angel appeared, telling her to go back and stay with Roger. The remaining friends gather together in a final moment of shared happiness and resolve to enjoy whatever time they have left with each other, affirming that there is no day but today.
Oh, I have goosebumps.
I know.
That's what this show does to us. So we're going to talk a little bit about the cast because they're, like many of our shows that we've discussed, there was an awesome cast and many people that came in and out of the show. Some namely names: Anthony Rapp, Idina Menzel, Taye Diggs, Adam Pascal, Jesse L. Martin, Wilson Jermaine Heredia, Daphne Rubin Vega, and Freddie Walker, who were all the original cast members. Fun fact, speaking of all of those original cast actors and actresses, when they filmed the movie, all of those original cast members, minus Mimi, Joanne, and I believe that's it, were all the original cast members from the Broadway show.
Wow.
Yep. I'm full of useless information like this.
No, I love it. Well, I think who played Mimi in the film? Rosario Dawson?
Rosario Dawson, and then Tracy Toms played Joanne.
Nice.
So some notable replacements of actors that also came through the Nederlander were Drew Lachey, Joey Fatone, Neil Patrick Harris, and Adam Rickett as Mark. Declan Bennett. Do you know who that is?
No.
It says it's a notable name. Declan
Interesting.
Bennett as Roger. Melanie Brown and Tamira Gray as Mimi. We saw Tamira Gray.
Yes, we did.
Michael McElroy as Tom Collins. Jay Rodriguez and Wilson Cruz as Angel. Caprice Bourret, Denise Van Outen, and Jessie Wallace as Maureen.
Wow.
And that's really all I was able to find. I'm sure
And
there were
a lot more. That show was on for a really long time.
It was crazy. I remember the first time I saw that show, I was in 7th or 8th grade. I think it was 7th grade. And I was in 7th grade and I was going with Mr. Kokum. You remember how he used to do his Broadway show trips?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
So I was in 7th grade, and the week leading up to the show, I was sick. Like, I had 104 fever. I was so sick. And I remember my mom taking me to the doctor, and she was like, "She's going to see Rent on Broadway on Thursday. She needs to be better." And because I was going with my dad, he was going to come with me.
Nice.
So we go, and the doctor's like, "Oh, she just has the flu. Like, she'll be fine by
Only
Thursday."
has the flu. She'll be good.
Well, like, the way he put it was that I was on the mend.
Good.
Like, my fever was going down. So lo and behold, I woke up that morning with no fever. Okay, no fever, ready to go, raring to go. Because I didn't want to miss it because it was a special performance, and during that opening scene in the second act, they let us, like they called us, Nutley Middle School, stand up and sing Seasons of Love with us. So there were like, I don't know how many kids were there, but we all got to stand up and sing Seasons of Love with them from like the balcony.
Oh, that's so cool.
And like, I was like in love with that show from then. And I think that was like in 2000, the year 2000. And then, long story short on that, we left and I got home and I had a 104 fever.
Oh my goodness.
By the time we got home, because it was raining and we had to walk like 6 blocks to find the bus. So I had a 104 fever, and I was then out of school for a month because I did not have the flu. I had pneumonia. Fun stuff. And mono at the same time.
Oh, that is not fun.
What an adventure. So yeah, so I went to Rent, and then I was out of school for a month.
Fun times.
But overall, I loved that show. I loved the music. I loved the characters. I saw it 7 times. 7.
Whoa, that's a lot.
I saw it 5 times the closing summer.
Oh my God.
So I went when I was in middle school, and then I went with you in 2007. We'll get to that story in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 2008, I think I went that summer like every 2 weeks, 5 times.
Girl.
With different people.
Girl.
5 times.
I saw it
Because,
once.
well, yes. Well, because Anthony Rapp and Adam Pascal came back, and I was like, I need to see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I took Gina to see Rent for her only time, for her graduation present from high school.
Yeah.
And it was me, Gina, another friend of mine, and my mom. She took us. We did TKTS to get the tickets. Oh, I miss it. We went to Hard Rock. And
Yeah.
do we want to talk about what happened at Hard Rock?
How we did what? Shots in Hard Rock?
How we did shots of vodka at Hard Rock.
Yeah. That was good times.
And
Fresh out of high school.
Fresh out of high school, freshman in college. I don't know if we want to put that, but we'll whatever.
Totally fine. And then we
out.
got chocolate covered strawberries at Godiva,
Oh my God.
and then we went into Bryant Park and ate them.
Gee, you know that picture in our opening of you and me, and I was wearing that blue, green, like romper.
Mm-hmm.
The green
that
was
day.
taken that day when we went on the merry-go-round in Bryant Park.
I love the merry-go-round in Bryant Park.
Me too.
And it sings like the French songs and stuff. But yeah, that was from that day. That was such a fun day.
It was. So then we go to the show. We're like going crazy through the whole show because it's Adam Pascal and Anthony Rapp, 2 of the original cast members, back. And we were young, and at this point we were those people that waited outside afterwards to meet the actors. And we get outside. We get outside, and there is a complete mob scene of people.
Can I just preface this by saying, like, I didn't even know who these guys were. I didn't know what the show is about. And I fell in love with Adam Pascal. And I was like, because I also loved Anthony Rapp. Like, I thought he was super cute, but he, wouldn't be into me. Let's, be real here. And I was like, ooh, Adam Pascal is cute. So I just like that day watching the show, fell in love. We talked about going backstage, or we talked about going to the stage door to meet them. But Tracy had informed me that, like, no, these guys, I don't know if they're gonna be signing autographs because now they're celebrities. They were in the movie, and they might just like leave. So Trey, do you wanna? I was very determined, and Tracy can tell the rest of the story.
So the show ends and we were up in the balcony. So like this has been our like routine since we started going to shows together. Like we would grab onto each other. So like we would hold each other's like shirts and we would plow through the crowd to try to get outside really quickly so we could get a good spot. This night there was no good spot. There was a mob scene outside and then a silver car that was waiting to pick up both of them. So it wound up that they had all of 41st Street like roped off because there were so many people that we went in the street behind the car. So like we could still see because we could see over the hood of the car, but like we were behind the car essentially. So Anthony Rapp comes out and everyone's screaming and he's walking past and he's signing autographs and we're all like handing him our playbills and we're like, "Oh my God, we love you. You were so great." Like, and then Tamira Gray comes out and everyone is cheering for her and they're like, "Oh my God, sign my playbill, take a picture with me." And they weren't taking pictures, like they were like, "You could take pictures of us." Like the security guards were not letting them stop because the crowd was so big. And then lo and behold, Adam Pascal comes out and Gina loses her shit.
Fangirl.
She is screaming. And then like her excitement gets me excited. I was already excited to see him. But like she's like, "Trey, there he is. I have to meet him. I have to touch him." So
I
like,
didn't even care. He was like running down the line, like beelining to his car. I said,
Yeah.
he is not getting away until I touch this man.
So essentially what we did was like Gina was like half like on like my shoulder, like pushing herself up, and we're both throwing our playbills on top of the car. It was like a little sedan, and we are throwing our playbills. And what he did, he opened the door and climbed so he could lean over the car.
And there was like a little divot, like not a footstool. There was something like a little thing at the bottom of the car. I shoved my foot on top of it and was launching myself over the roof of the car, and I grabbed his hand,
God.
and I was like, "Oh my God!" You would have thought he was like the freaking Beatles.
and then she grabs his hand and lets go, and then of course he's like moving along the car, and then I was like, me too, and then I grab his hand. And he signs our playbills and pushes them back over the car to us. And he's laughing. He's laughing at this point because, like, we're crazy people. And we were just like, we were so starstruck. And we were like, "Thank you so much." And, like, we're crying.
He must have felt like Paul McCartney in that moment.
So, right? Absolutely. So we're walking down 41st Street to go to the bus, and I just remember Gina and I screaming, "I'm never gonna wash this hand again! Oh my God!"
Yeah, how unsanitary. I literally was like, "I'm never washing this hand ever again." Really?
Insanity.
Really, Gina? I love the show. Like, I didn't know what to expect, and it was just like I was like, all right, people are going to be singing about how they can't afford their freaking rent. Like, I had no idea the history with Jonathan Larson. I had no idea why he wrote it, you know, who he wrote it for, didn't have any clue. And then I was like so blown away by it. And I understand nowadays people are like, oh, rent, blah, blah, blah. I guess because there's like oversaturation of it. I really don't know. And then I hear like the argument like, oh, it's outdated. But that's like that's like that's teaching us like how people lived. Like you can't change history. That's a part of history and what people went through. And yeah, times are different now, but if we don't remember what happened then, like how can we
We're gonna
continue
repeat it.
Right. So I get it because I get it. The live versions of Rent and all the high schools doing Rent left and freaking right up the like it's a lot. There's a lot oversaturation, and so I understand where people are like, "Oh, rent, okay." But when you really look at the history of it and you like dive into the story of Jonathan Larson and you understand, you know, why it was a passion project for him and all of that, then you appreciate it more. So, we hope you guys enjoyed our episode on Rent, and we hope that you guys enjoyed our crazy cuckoo banana story about Rent. But now Tracy's gonna pick the show for the next episode.
All right, I got one. Oh my god, yes.
What?
Oh my god, yes.
I can't read it.
I know. I think I could get this from you in one clue.
Oh God. All right, try.
Salem Road Trip 2013 bathroom.
Young Frankenstein.
Yes.
Yay!
I told you. One clue. One clue. That was great. One clue.
Oh my God. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us on this week's podcast, and we cannot wait to see you again next week. Thanks again. We love you all. Stay safe. Be well. I'm Gina.
And I'm Tracy. And this is A View from the Mez, a chat with Broadway babes. We love you. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Mwah.
Oh,